Hey, before this video starts, I want to let you know that only 3.8% of you guys are subscribed. Ludicrous. So if you'd like to subscribe, I really appreciate that. Make sure you watch to the end and give me a comment suggestion down below for 2 of my dogs. I chose names from the last comments for 2 of my other dogs, but I've still got 2 left. Anyway, thank you for clicking on this video and I hope you enjoy. Back on my 100 days world, it was time to continue my adventure. If you watched to the end of my 100 days video, you'll know that I went and stored all my armor and tools ready for this day. So I went and collected all that up from the chest. I was now kitted up and ready for Minecraft 200 days. I went and checked up on my villagers, but of course there were still zombie villagers. So I decided to spend my first day just mining, getting myself materials such as XP, ores, and also cobblestone for building. I needed mushrooms, which could be found in dark oak forests. I would want these to be able to cure my villagers properly this time after all you guys slaughtered me in the comments. I hopped in one of the boats I made and started boating over to an oak forest I found in 100 days, but then remembered I've got an elytra. I don't need to boat around. I chucked my elytra on and began going. I was soon at the dark oak forest as it wasn't too far away and managed to get myself some mushrooms for the potions of weakness. I got a lot, probably too many, but it's fine. You know, we will need them in the future anyway. Better to be safe than sorry. I made my way home, farmed some sugarcane, and also made myself some golden apples because I knew I would need them to cure the villagers and actually give them to the villagers this time rather than throw them at them. I then used sugar from that sugarcane I mined and made some fermented spider eye. I then used some awkward potions I had in the brewing stand and made these potions of weakness. I then had to go around killing creepers for gunpowder because of course I needed to make them splash potions and I would need gunpowder to be able to do so. I then chucked the gunpowder in the chest, also made myself another golden apple because I had a bit more gold, and then grabbed my potions from the brewing stand as they were finished. Day 103, finally, after letting all of my villagers sadly get turned into zombies, it was finally time for me to turn them back into normal villagers. I was so excited that I was actually going to be able to trade once again, since it's been a long time. I only had a couple of golden apples, so I splashed the zombies and gave them the golden apples just to test if it would work. But me being me, I didn't realize that this was pointless because only 2 of the zombies were going to go back to normal villagers and they would just get eaten and turn back into zombie villagers. So I had to go get myself some more golden apples. I didn't really have much gold, so I headed back down to the mine and entered this cave. I got myself a decent amount of gold. Oh yeah, I also found these diamonds as well while I wasn't even meaning to. I got myself some more gold and headed back up. I went and checked on my villagers, but as I thought, unfortunately, they were back into zombie villagers once again. I grabbed a gold helmet from one of my armor stands, chucked it on because I didn't want the piglins to kill me, and made my way to the nether. It was so amazing just being able to fly through the nether so much faster. This would save me so much time rather than just walking everywhere. I found this spot where I found some golden nuggets and began mining them. This was going to be an amazing way for me to get golden apples fairly quickly. I mined a bunch of gold and then flew back over to my portal after I had a sufficient amount of golden nuggets. I actually managed to make quite a lot of ingots, more than I thought I'd be able to. So then I made myself about 7 golden apples. Day 104, I splashed all the villagers with weakness. I then gave them all these apples, but just ran around because I didn't want some of the villagers to go back to normal, but then the ones that were still zombies, I didn't want them to eat them. So I'd rather them chase me instead. But it was definitely worth it as all my villagers became back to normal and I was able to get some very, very cheap trades. I could even get mending for 5 emeralds. I didn't want the same thing to happen again, so before I entered off day 104, I went and built this outside of the house. It was like a little entranceway with an iron door to make sure no mobs would be able to get near the villagers while the villagers not being able to get out. I fixed up my pickaxe, bought some mending books, and finished off the day by putting that mending book on my pickaxe to make it last. Day 105 was really just a day of me mining bamboo, turning that into sticks, and just getting loads of bamboo and sticks to eventually then be able to sell them to the villagers at the end of the day. Getting sticks from bamboo and selling them to villagers is probably, I personally think, the best way to actually get emeralds fast. You'll definitely see in this video me using this method again and again, and it is very good. I would highly suggest it. Knowing I was really low on XP, I decided to head back down to my mine on day 106 and go through my strip mine, mining all of the coal, redstone, etc. that would of course give me a bunch of XP because I left all these ores not thinking I would need them, but they're pretty good ways to get XP. I then on day 107 and 8 decided to just go break in this whole forest to get myself some wood because I had essentially no wood in my chests. This of course drained my axe, so on day 109 I started the day by making myself a fresh brand new diamond axe. I also was running low on food, so I decided to make myself some bread, of course with wheat that I got from breaking hay bales in 100 days. I then used a bit of this bread to try and breed my villagers and actually managed to get a baby villager. I needed another villager to be able to get myself some more trades such as librarians for books, but also to be able to trade more sticks at one time. After waiting a while, I actually managed to get 2 new baby villagers. I didn't know how many were actually going to be able to be made because I didn't really have any beds. So I crafted a couple more beds just to be safe. I then put these beds down and then made a lectern and a Fletcher table for our new villagers. Day 110, I broke myself some sugarcane and made myself a bunch of fireworks out of paper from the sugarcane because I was running low. Once I had these fireworks, I hopped into the nether because I needed magma blocks. I needed these magma blocks to be able to help me make myself a creeper farm. The main reason I wanted a creeper farm was to, of course, get myself gunpowder, which I can then get TNT for to get myself some netherite. Because at the current time, I still had full diamond armor and diamond tools, and I wanted to get netherite ones. And I just knew getting a creeper farm to make myself TNT, to then go ahead and blow it up in the nether, I just knew that would be the best way to go. So I went ahead and, of course, got myself these magma blocks and made myself a bit more bread. At this point, I decided to just spend ages getting bamboo, turning it into sticks, then trading with the villagers once again. I kept doing this in short bursts to be able to get myself eventually enough emeralds for a full emerald beacon. I then lit up the area where I knew I was going to build the creeper farm because I did not want mobs to spawn below it. As I said before, I wanted to make this creeper farm, but I really didn't have that many materials for it. So I spent day 111 doing that exact thing. I got myself a bunch of fences, redstone torches, hoppers, buckets of water, and a bunch of rails. I also had to head back to the nether because I was running a bit short on magma blocks, so I went and got some more of those. I had some cobblestone blocks that I put in my chest, but I had nowhere near enough. So day 112, I spent the whole day mining, and while getting a bunch of cobblestone that I needed, I also managed to get a bunch of ores, including a few diamonds. I headed back up on day 113 and put all this cobblestone I got in my chest, but this just, it wasn't enough. I went mining once again and found even more diamonds. I was beginning to build up a bit of a collection. Now that I had this little bit more cobble that I needed, I chucked that in the chest and began cooking some. I needed to cook some to be able to get myself smooth stone, which I would then later smelt to get smooth stone. I then made some redstone repeaters with that smooth stone and killed some spiders because I needed some bows for dispensers. I also had to get some observers as well, but luckily those weren't too hard to craft. Day 114, the ball was beginning to roll. I was having a lot of things I needed to do. I put mending on my helmet because I didn't really want it to break, and then went getting myself some more quartz and stuff from the nether to fix the helmet up a bit. I then made myself a few of these smooth stone labs, but I needed stacks and stacks of them, so this wouldn't be enough. I headed back down to the mine and continued a bit more mining to get cobble, so I could then make that into stone, smelt that, and get even more smooth stone, because as I said, I needed a lot. Obviously, I had this whole operation going with the furnaces, but this was not enough. I made the decision to make myself even more furnaces. I placed them all down in the corner of my house, probably not the best place to put them, but I decided to put them there anyway. While these things were cooking, I ended the day off by turning all of my wood into trapdoors, because I needed stacks of them. I chopped down some more trees on day 115 and finished making myself all the trapdoors I needed. The rest of the day was honestly pretty boring. I had to spend the entirety of the day getting smooth stone for furnaces, cooking cobblestone, and ultimately just getting myself enough slabs to be able to finish off this creeper farm. You can see from the chest that I actually needed about 13 stacks of these slabs, so yeah, I needed a lot. You're probably wondering why I was making this fishing rod. That was just because I would need that to hook the minecart, which would be collecting all the gunpowder for me. Speaking of minecarts, I made myself this minecart with a hopper to, of course, collect up the gunpowder to then be filtered into these chests. This was the last piece I needed, so I started building my creeper farm on day 116 and got it done by day 123. I must say, I found this tutorial to build this on YouTube, so I'll put the link in the description for that video. Now that my creeper farm was done, I spent day 124 AFK at this creeper farm, and as you can see, there was quite a lot of mobs falling, especially spiders, because they would be able to spawn as well. Day 125, I was very intrigued to see what I was actually going to get from this creeper farm. I was hoping I was going to get at least a few stacks of gunpowder. Of course, I was only there for a day, so it wouldn't have been as much as it could have been, but I was still excited to see. I headed down, and to my surprise, I had around 7 stacks of gunpowder, along with, of course, some string. I grabbed all this gunpowder and stored it in my chest, safe to be able to make some TNT when I had a bit more. After this, I headed back to my villager farm and realized it was getting quite messy in there, so I broke everything everything in there and decided to just kind of rearrange the place to make it look a bit nicer and a bit more, I guess, organized. The baby villagers were now grown up and I could turn them into librarians. I just sat there for the rest of the day, breaking this lectern and placing it over and over again until the villager eventually got protection 4. I didn't know how much I would actually need this because I know I already had protection on some of my armor, but I decided to go with it anyway. I left the villager house, made a couple of fletching tables and placed them in the house. I did this because to be able to afford enchantments like that, I was going to need a lot more sticks. As you saw, I had these fletching tables to be able to sell sticks, but I needed those sticks to actually be able to sell them. This is why on this next day, I just spent the whole day mining bamboo, turning it into sticks and just selling it to these fletchers. A bit of a boring day, but it had to be done. The next day, now that I had a bit of cash to spend, I got myself a couple of protection 4 books. I went to try and put this protection on my boots, but I was way too of a low level. I needed to be level 35 and I was unfortunately only level 22. I had now been at my house for a fair few days, so I decided to venture out a bit. I flew around for quite a while and ended up at this desert. I didn't know if it was a new one or not, but I would go with it anyway. I found this temple, looked into the top, and to my surprise, I hadn't actually looted it yet. Seeing as there was quite a lot I already had looted. I got down to the bottom, took all of the TNT, and grabbed all the loot from these chests. Nothing too amazing, but it's free loot, you know, you can't complain. Once I was out of this temple, I continued going and found this nearby sand village, which I exploited to get myself a bunch of hay. While I was breaking this hay, it was actually beginning to become nighttime, meaning I just slept in this village to get it to daytime. Day 128, I saw this little floating island in the desert. Of course, if you break sand that has nothing actually below it, it'll all break. So that's what I did. I broke one piece of sand and it looked so satisfying as it all fell off this little island. I flew around a bit more and found another temple that I hadn't actually looted. When I entered this temple, I instantly got hissed at by a creeper, so I had to turn my back, shoot it, and it was gone. I was not going to let this creeper end my 200 days. I grabbed all the loot and carried on my journey. This is probably one of the coolest little plainlands villages that I'd ever seen because it had a temple directly in the middle. I'd never seen that before and I thought it was a pretty cool thing to see. I grabbed the shovel from it because I didn't actually have one. I proceeded to loot all the chests and start grabbing the hay, but this was just taking way too long, so I made myself an iron hoe with the iron that I got from the temples and continued to get myself all of this hay. There was also a third temple right next to this village, and when I looted that, there wasn't too much good stuff, but of course at the end of the day, I still got a golden apple and the TNT is always helpful. Once I found this temple, there was these really cool looking cliffs nearby, so I decided to kind of fly through those a bit. On the other side of these cliffs, there was once again another village. This was like my third village after 3 temples as well. After I looted this acacia village, just pretty much for the hay, you're not going to believe this. I looked and there was another village. There was another village right next to a temple as well. I took all the hay, then looted the temple, and of course grabbed the TNT and grabbed a few little things from the temple. I did not know how I was getting so lucky. It literally felt like someone had made this world for me. This desert was quite big, so I knew there was probably going to be more things in the desert. I flew back to the desert and found, once again, another village. I could not believe my eyes. I was getting so lucky with this spawn, especially seeing as I had looted a bunch more things in my first 100 days. While I was grabbing this hay, a lot of mobs did actually begin to spawn, so I decided to just block off the window and door just in case and just sleep there for the night. I began the next day by grabbing all the hay that I was trying to get on day 128 and then flew around a little bit more. To my surprise, I saw this villager outpost, something that I hadn't actually seen in quite a while in just Minecraft in general. I knew this would be a perfect chance for me to get a raid in a village and get myself some totems of undying, so that's what I did. I killed the main pillager and then flew around a bit looking for a village. Worst comes to worst, I could have just used a village near my house, but I found this little village next to the jungle. The raid began to happen while I was in the middle of getting hay, so I had to just fight off the pillagers and the ravengers. I wanted to see how much damage the pillager would actually do, but it ended up taking about half my hearts away. This is when I knew I would have to put on my chest plate if I was to survive this. This ravenger began to actually get quite close to me, so I hopped my way up to this house. I continued shooting at it as I know I had a pretty good bow, and then the iron golem luckily finished it off for me. I sat up here and continued shooting these pillagers until it actually became daytime. I then honestly, for the rest of the round, just sat on top of this roof, killing these pillagers with my bow, because I know this would be so easy and I'd easily be able to survive if I did this. After a bunch of different rounds on day 129, I had to actually go and find myself the last villager. This one just wasn't making his way out of the house. I killed him and hopped back up to this roof as I knew another round was going to start and I did not want the ravengers to get near me. Once I shot the pillager on the ravenger, it was just the ravenger coming after me, but I was quite scared. The ravenger, it actually made its way onto the roof. I had to hop down quickly and just continue shooting shooting at it with my bow. Eventually, though, I managed to kill it. As the raid continued even more, me and my trusty bow made our way through the raid all in one piece. Once again, another day, another round. I had to kill Ravengers, kill different pillagers, kill evokers, and this round was over. And I got my first totem of undying from one of the wizard kind of villagers. I don't know what they're called. This round was finally over, and the raid was complete. I managed to save the village while getting myself some pretty good loot. I actually managed to get a few totems of undying, which would be amazing for when I was close to dying in the future. Now that it was done, it was time to make my way back home, but I soon ran out of fireworks. So if I wanted to fly, I would have to go to the top of the mountains and just glide my way down. I didn't want to get any of this loot lost, so I just put it all in separate chests where I would know where everything is. I then ended this day off by grabbing myself some more mending books, as they would literally cost me 1 emerald each. Day 131, it was time for the organization of the emeralds. I put all of my emeralds into emerald blocks just to be able to store them a bit easier. I decided to keep all of my emeralds where I was keeping my dragon egg, just so I knew where every single emerald I has was at all time. Bamboo being my main source of these emeralds, I wanted to expand the bamboo farm. And to do this, I had to cut down a bunch of my bamboo and then place it all around to extend the farm a lot more. I had this gunpowder farm, but I had no way of actually getting sand. So when I went out, I actually found this village instantly. I grabbed the hay, continued going, and then got all of this sand. I spent ages getting all this sand because I wanted a very large amount to be able to make myself stacks of TNT. I flew home on the next day and made myself all the TNT I could with the little gunpowder I had. Fortunately, it wasn't even the sand setting me back. It was the amount of gunpowder I had, which I could just get more anyway from my farm. Now that that was all done, I put mending on my sword and headed back down to the mine to do a bit more mining for the rest of the day. I actually found myself in this ravine cave kind of thing, so I went around getting a bunch of coal for there, of course, for XP. Being in this mine shaft reminded me that I'd be able to get myself possibly some name tags from the chests. I found this chest, and to my surprise, I found myself a name tag. I finally got a name tag in the first chest I actually looted. I also got myself some diamonds. I was so excited because this meant I was going to be able to name one of my dogs, finally. Now that I had everything I needed from this cave, I mined my way back up. When I got out of the cave, I actually noticed that I wasn't near my house. I had to fly my way back to the house with my trusty elytra, and when I got back, I enchanted my axe with mending. I bred my cows, chopped down a bunch of bamboo, and also fixed up my bow. As I said, I was running out of gunpowder for TNT, so after I made my bow, I then just spent the rest of the day, all the way up until day 136, sat in my gunpowder farm AFK. Of course, with going AFK, there comes the time where you have to go and collect the things you've been AFKing for. So that's exactly what I did on day 137. I flew all the way down to the bottom, went and looked in my chest, and there was so much gunpowder and string just waiting there for me. I took all the gunpowder back to my house and made myself a lot of TNT. Around 3.5 stacks to be exact. With all this TNT, I now had one thing to use it for. I hopped in the nether portal and made my way down to level 15. Of course, I had to make my way through all the explosions I had done before, and after I exploded my first lot of TNT, I actually got myself a couple of bits of netherite. After this first explosion, after destroying all the netherite, I actually had 5 ancient debris, which is pretty good. I exploded all this TNT, got a couple of pieces of netherite. When I went to go further into the explosion, I actually spotted 3 pieces of netherite. I was so excited. I grabbed this netherite, exploded my last lot of TNT, and it was now time to head back up to go back through the nether portal and go home. When I was home, I separated all the ancient debris into 4 different furnaces, made myself a smithing table while I was waiting, and then eventually all this ancient debris was done. Unfortunately, I was only able to make myself 2 netherite ingots because of the fact that I just didn't have a lot of gold. So that's exactly what I had to do, go get some gold. I headed back down to the mine and then spent a bunch of time getting gold. Once I was back up at my house on day 138, I smelted this gold to make myself a bunch more netherite ingots, and now I had 6 in total. You can probably guess what I did next. I turned all of my armor into netherite armor and my sword and pickaxe as well, because I thought, why not? I then put on all my armor, including the chest plate, and I was very happy that I managed to get it this quickly. Now that I had completed this challenge of getting full enchanted netherite armor, I decided to go and spend the rest of the day getting bamboo, sticks, etc. to then sell them to villagers by the end of the day. I carried these processes on throughout day 139, and then near to the end of day 139, I made my way into the nether. I found this nether fortress and wanted to try and get myself some wither skulls. Instantly, as I got in, I managed to kill a couple with my bow, but didn't actually manage to get any wither skulls. I spent a bunch of time on day 140 trying to get these wither skulls, but unfortunately, my bow just wasn't cutting it, so I had to make my way back home. Now that I no longer really had any gunpowder, I decided to just spend the rest of day 140 AFK in my gunpowder farm. Not that this would get me loads, but I thought I may as well. Day 141, I made some of my hay into a bunch of wheat and decided to trade a bit with the villagers, because I hadn't traded with the farmers in quite a long time. I then made these emeralds into blocks and then added them to my collection. Then once again, ended off the day by getting a bunch of bamboo, and I actually managed to expand my bamboo farm quite a lot. Day 142, I headed back into the nether and went back to the fortress to try and kill skeletons once again. I killed wither skeletons for the whole day, but unfortunately, I did not get a single wither skull. There was actually one point where I was quite worried, as one of the wither skeletons actually got me very low. After this point where I was getting no wither heads, I decided to just make my way back home once again. A bit disappointed, but I knew I'd be able to get them at some point soon. Day 143, I wanted some more villager babies, so I gave them some bread, and then they obviously bred to make more villagers. As you can probably tell, it was getting very crowded in this villager farm. I knew it was time for an upgrade. I made some cobblestone stairs and began to dig a little staircase so I'd be able to make a space underground. I placed these stairs down and then dug out a massive area underneath. I wanted to actually make it look quite nice instead of it being just stone, so I wanted to put wood all around the outside, but unfortunately I didn't have any wood, so I spent my last part of day 143 collecting up wood. I was then able to place all this wood around the walls on day 144 to make it look very nice. I also completed the ceiling off with some cobblestone and put some torches around the edges. I didn't know exactly what to put down here and how to design it, so I just took all the beds that were upstairs and put them down here, as there's a lot more room. Day 145, we finally had ourselves another villager ready to get a trade. I spent a very long time breaking and placing the lectern over and over again until eventually we got a Thorns 2 book. I decided to buy a bunch of these books as I knew I would really need them for my armor, as they would be very useful. I wanted to make them Thorns 3, which I did for a couple of them, but very soon after I completely ran out of XP. I also went and collected my gunpowder. Not a lot, but I knew it would be fairly useful. I bred my cows, and then once again it was an evening of breaking bamboo and getting myself some more sticks. Day 146, I traded some sticks with the villagers, grabbed a bunch of string from the gunpowder farm, and traded a bunch of string with villagers. This was a very good way to make emeralds. Oh yeah, I also got a diamond shovel and put efficiency 2 on it. Day 147, it was another day of looting. I was getting so lucky. I instantly found this sand village and the sand temple, which I of course both looted. I kept going and found myself another sand village on this coast, and finished off the day by finding one more acacia village. Of course, it was getting very late, so I didn't really want to loot it at the night time, just in case of creepers and stuff, so I decided to just spend the night here. The next day, I looted this village and made my way back home. I actually went the wrong way the first time, so after going thousands of blocks, I had to turn back round. Day 149, so close to halfway now. I went and traded a bunch of the wheat I got from those villages with my farmer villagers. I also had a lot of string from AFKing before, so I went and traded this as well, and of course, as I said earlier, got loads of emeralds from it. After all this trading was done, of course, as you can guess, I had a lot of emerald blocks. Not enough for a full beacon, but I decided to kind of lay out where my beacon was going to go. Surprisingly, I actually had the exact amount of blocks I needed to make the base layer. Now that I had this bottom layer sorted, I was starting to feel a bit more confident. I went and got some sand from nearby and made myself a bunch of glass. I also chopped down this whole forest, and you're probably wondering to yourself, why was I getting glass? Why was I getting all this wood? I wanted to make myself a sugarcane farm. Day 151, over halfway now. I headed down to my mine and spent the day mining to get cobblestone, but I also needed things like iron and redstone for the observers and things like that. When I got back after mining, I smelted my iron ore, and once that was done, made myself a bunch of hoppers and rails. Once again, becoming a bit of a tradition, the rest of my day consisted of me just breaking bamboo to get, of course, sticks. Day 152 to 53, I then went ahead and made the sugar calm in a cool little time lapse. The next day, I realized I needed quite a lot of hoppers, which would mean I needed a lot of iron. I headed down to the nearest mine shaft and just got as much iron as I could. I then smelted all my iron and made myself a bunch of hoppers. Day 155, I placed all these hoppers that I needed to, and then went and set up the minecart rail. This would be to collect all the sugarcane without it just despawning. The rest of day 155 was spent breeding cows and making some compost bins for villagers. Nothing too interesting on day 156. I spent the day getting bamboo, trading it with villagers to get emeralds, and then AFK'd in my creeper farm for the whole of the night time. Day 157, I went down and collected this gunpowder and traded a bunch of string with villagers on day 158. On day 158, I managed to get myself a bunch more emerald blocks and continued with my beacon. I also did a bit of farming of my wheat as well. I placed a couple more blocks into my beacon and I now was getting very close to being done. Day 159, I spent half the day getting myself some sticks to of course get emeralds because I really wanted that beacon. At the end of the day, I got myself a bunch of emeralds. Day 160, I did a bunch of breeding of my cows, and then went AFK for the rest of the day to try and get myself some more string and gunpowder. Day 161, I collected all this string and gunpowder and then traded with the villagers once again. I now had a bunch more emeralds and was able to finish off my whole beacon. All I needed now was the actual beacon itself. I then headed back to the Nether and it was another day of getting myself XP. I continued to do this on day 162 to 163. The main reason I was trying to do this was mainly just to get myself XP to try and get looting on my sword, because I know looting would make it a lot more likely for me to actually get wither skulls. Day 164, I headed back home and I had a lot of gold nuggets, so I just made them into ingots. While I could have just got looting from one of the villagers, I decided to take my chances and enchant a bunch of diamond swords, but that was a bad decision because none of them got looting. I then bred some more villagers and bred my cows as well. Day 165, I spent the day breaking and placing a lectern until eventually, to my surprise, one of the villagers actually got looting 3, which was just what I was looking for. I grabbed some emeralds in a book, bought a looting book, and then put it on my sword. I finally had looting. This was going to make it so much easier. Day 166, I jumped down, went to my villager farm, and after a bunch of breaking of the lectern, I managed to get sweeping edge 3 on one of the villagers. I grabbed some emeralds and a book, but unfortunately, when I bought the book and tried to put on my sword, I had nowhere near the amount of XP I needed, so I hopped in the nether portal and made my way to the nether. I started getting XP until I noticed there was a nether fortress. I knew that I'd be a lot more likely to get wither skulls now that I had looting on my sword, so when I went here, I started killing wither skeletons straight away, and after I killed a couple, I already had a wither skull. I was so happy because this showed me that I knew it was going to be so much easier than I thought. I battled some blazes, and then this wither skeleton started coming at me, so I went and killed him and actually got myself a second skull, all within about 5 wither skeletons. I then killed a couple more wither skeletons and actually got my 3rd skull. I was so happy. This would mean I wouldn't have to try and get any more unless I wanted to fight the wither again for whatever reason. Now that I had my skulls, it was time to head home. When I was in the nether, I also got some soul sand, so luckily I had enough to fight the wither. I put the soul sand and the wither skulls in my chest and then traded some more sticks for emeralds with the villagers. Day 168, I headed back to the nether and fulfilled the mission that I had earlier by getting myself a bunch of XP. I then headed back home and had to make myself a brand new chest because of all the warts and gold I had from getting XP. I carried on getting XP on day 169, and then by day 170, I was able to make myself lots of gold ingots. I also had enough XP to put sweeping edge 3 on my sword, so that's exactly what I did. Now that I had this new sword, there was nothing left for me to do apart from just get bamboo and get sticks. I then ended off the day by breeding some more cows because I was actually starting to get quite a lot. I headed down to my mine on day 171 and just spent the day mining out a large area. I did this because I wanted a bit more of a large area when trying to fight the wither because I didn't know how much room I would actually need. When doing this, I actually managed to find myself a couple of diamonds. Day 172, I made myself a bunch of golden apples, and now this was it. It was time for me to fight the wither for the first time on my own. I put on the last head and ran away quickly. This was it. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how much damage the wither was going to do. Instantly, it got stuck, so I started shooting at it and got it to nearly half health, but then it started deflecting them back at me. I ran around the corner, ate some bread so I had full hunger, and continued shooting. I didn't know how much damage it was actually going to do, seeing as I had very good armor, so I let the wither shoot at me once to see how much damage it did. To my surprise, it didn't actually do that much, but I knew this damage would all build up quickly if it shot me multiple times. I ate myself a golden apple and went in shooting once again. I had to dodge lots of its fireballs, and then I went in swinging, but unfortunately, I had to run back because it was starting to do a lot of damage. I ate another golden apple, went in swinging, and actually got the wither to below half health this time. I carried on hitting the wither as much as I can, but it started doing so much damage. I retreated, ate a golden apple, and went back in. This is it. I wasn't going to let the wither survive any longer. I went in swinging, and my sword was doing so much damage, I actually managed to kill it with a few hits. This was it. The wither was finally defeated. I grabbed my nether star and ran back up to my house. I was so happy. I finally had the wither star. I'd be able to make a beacon with this. This was one of my main goals in this world, so I was so happy. I went and grabbed myself some sand, grabbed obsidian from a chest, and crafted myself the beacon. Of course, I took this to my emerald beacon and put it on top. I finally had myself a full beacon. I then AFK'd at my gunpowder farm for the rest of day 172, but also day 173 to 174. With only 25 days left, I went and collected my gunpowder, and I had quite a lot. I wasn't surprised, as I was AFKing for about 3 days. After multiple trips back and forth, I got all the gunpowder and put it in my chest back at home. I also grabbed all the string and traded it with the villagers, and made myself a bunch more fireworks, as I was beginning to run out. I also put mending on my shovel, and went out to go find myself some sand. I found this little village, which I went and looted, and in the first chest, I actually found 3 diamonds and diamond horse armor. The rest of the village didn't really have too good stuff in, so I just started mining sand. And then after all this mining on day 177, I made my way back home. I didn't actually realize how far I went out. When I was back home, I ended off the day by making myself loads of TNT. Day 178, a day of destruction. I began the day by breeding some cows and then made my way to the nether to cause some havoc. I went down to level 15, went and dug out a massive tunnel and placed loads of TNT that I had. I exploded it and then went and grabbed all the ancient debris I could find. I then made another explosion, grabbed all the ancient debris, and then went digging another hole. I then went and exploded my last lot of TNT. I grabbed all the ancient debris, went back home, and started smelting all of it. By the end of it, I was actually able to make myself a total of 3 ingots. Day 179 to 180 was also spent in the nether. Whilst I was flying around, my game started to glitch, and I didn't know where I was. I had to land on this little platform, but because my game was being so laggy, I actually ended up in lava. I quickly left the game, thought about what I was going to do, and joined back. I put my chest plate on really quickly and had to just swim through the lava to the shore. While doing this, I actually had to eat 3 golden apples just because of how worried I was. I probably could have dealt with less, but I just ate all of them just in case. I built myself this little wooden platform and made my way onto the netherrack to keep myself safe. I was so worried. Once I fell in the lava, I thought that was it. I thought the whole series was going to end. I thought I was over. I then carried on flying and just spent the rest of the time getting myself XP once again. Day 181, it occurred to me that I didn't have a horse, so I ventured out and managed to get myself one. I gave it some diamond horse armor, brought it all the way back to my house, but had nowhere to put it. So I then spent the rest of the day making him a little stable. By the end of the day, the stable was done. It was looking quite nice, so I went and took my horse to his new home. I knew for day 300, I would need a lot of materials. So on day 182, I got some wood, and then on day 183, I went mining and got myself loads of cobblestone. I also spent day 184 to 185 getting bamboo and selling it to villagers. Day 186 began with me breeding my cows once again, and I also thought I'd venture out to try and find some new villages. I found this acacia one really nearby. I don't know how I didn't even know it was there. I spotted this pillager outpost, so I went to it, killed the main pillager, and went back to the village. This would, of course, start a new raid. For the first round that was going into nighttime, I just spent it on top of a roof shooting all the pillagers. Once it did become nighttime, I had to go and actually kill the villagers myself, but for some reason the raids just stopped. I had no idea why, but the raid just stopped and ended, so I just went to sleep. Day 187 began with me getting hay, and then I also found another little sand village, which I got hay from as well. I looted myself another temple and got some pretty good loot, including emeralds. They're always quite useful. I then flew back out and made my way back home. Once I was home, I put all my stuff in a chest because it was all quite muddled up. I then AFK'd at my creeper farm from day 187 all the way up to day 190. We were now on the final 10 days of my Minecraft 200 days hardcore. Day 191, I collected all my gunpowder and my chests were looking very messy, so I had to spend the whole of the day just sorting those out. I then needed a place to put all my loot, so on day 192 to 193, I built this little island platform thing to put everything, and of course put all my loot in all of the different chests as well. Day 194 to 195, I built this cool little display for my dragon egg. I couldn't really think of anything else, so I decided to just do this cave kind of thing with ores around it. I don't know, maybe it looks cool. What do you think? Day 196, I was of course done, so I grabbed my dragon egg and took it over to this new display. I then spent the rest of day 196 completely harvesting my wheat farm, breeding cows once again, and building this little bridge across to my new island of chests. It was now finally time to name my dogs. I'll put the 2 comments up on the screen now, but one of the dogs was called Jack and one of them was called Ethan. And remember, don't forget to leave some suggestions for the name of my horse and my other 2 dogs in the comments of this video. I went and named the name tags Jack and Ethan, and this actually broke my anvil. I named them and then gave him some raw meat, which would actually make him have babies. I then headed back to the nether for my final trip of getting XP. The whole of day 197, I got all this XP and made my way back home by the end of it. Day 198, my third last day on the world. I did what I do best. I destroyed bamboo, traded the sticks with villagers, and did this for the whole day. Day 199, I went out and got myself a lot more sand, and then once I made my way home, made a bunch more TNT. This is all in preparation for me to get some more netherite. It was day 199. It was also nighttime, so I went and slept for my last day in this 200-day challenge. Day 200, it was the final day. It was time for me to go get netherite for the last time in this whole video. I had all the TNT I crafted the day before and made my way into the nether. I went down to level 115 and made my final tunnel of TNT. I kind of shoved a bunch of TNT in at the end so I could just make one massive tunnel and I wouldn't have to do another. But this was a massive mistake. I blew up all the TNT, but I was standing way too close. I got launched back into the lava. I tried to get out, but quickly this lava got me down to 2 hearts. I chucked off my elytra, put on my chest plate, and I started eating golden apples. I was okay at this point, but I didn't actually realize that when I did this, I threw my elytra into lava. I now had no elytra. Of course, this was now going to be my main mission for going into 300 days. While I was very upset, I collected the rest of the netherite and made my way back out of the nether. I hopped into the portal, chucked all my stuff in one of my new chests. It was beginning to become nighttime. I said goodbye to my dogs, goodbye to all my villagers, and goodbye to my new horse. I had a little swim around on my boat and then went to bed for day number 201.